May I introduce our new first officer, Commander William Riker. Commander Riker, this is our ship's counselor, Deanna Troi.
Do you remember what I taught you, Imzadi? Can you still sense my thoughts?
A pleasure, Commander.
Likewise, Counselor.
Have the two of you met before?
We have, sir.
Excellent. I consider it important for my key officers to know each other's abilities.
We do, sir. We do.
I too could never say goodbye, Imzadi.
Welcome to Deep Space Pride, a gay Star Trek podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Johnson, and with me is my co-host, Mike Thurlow. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Johnson. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. It is Sunday. The weekend is almost over. It's kind of sad and depressing, but here we are.
Yeah, but we had some Sunday fun day kind of stuff going on.
Did you?
I mean,
did I?
You did. You went out to brunch with Dennis.
Oh yeah, dim sum. That's right.
You went to
with your boyfriend.
Yes.
Yeah, we were in Chinatown. It was so far. I was so tired afterwards.
Yes, and I traveled to the Bronx to meet up with my friend David.
Oh, I didn't realize you went to the Bronx for brunch. That's really fun.
Yes.
That's like a journey.
That was a journey. Yeah.
Upstate.
Not exactly upstate, no, but
anything past 96 is upstate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to introduce our special guest for this?
Well, yeah. So
episode?
For those of you that were with us the last episode, we had mentioned that this episode would be a bit special because it is our 25th episode, which is a big deal. Technically, it's actually our 35th episode or so, but this is actually a 25th episode that we've published. So
yes.
It's fine. But we want to make it special. And to do that, we wanted to invite one of our friends to the podcast. So today we have a special guest, Nancy. Nancy, say hello.
Hi, it's my first time on a podcast. Exciting.
So everyone's probably like, who is this rando? Who is Nancy? So just to give a quick introduction, Nancy is a friend of mine from college. She's one of my closest friends. We've been friends for about 20 years. We first met in Chinese class in freshman year. It was very random. And we became friends pretty quickly after that. I mean, we had a few quizzes together and a few like in language class. For those of you who probably take language classes, you probably pair up people and you do like a little skit. You try to practice your, in this case, Chinese. Nancy had a few of those, and after that, we became friends pretty quickly. And just through the years, I would say that Nancy and I have grown in our friendship over time. Nancy is also, she's not part of the LGBTQ community, but she is a strong proponent and ally. Most of her male friends are just happen to be gay. And that's not even on purpose. It just so happens that way. And she met Mike. It's been, I guess, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. I don't even remember.
Yeah, I think
and
your birthday party.
Oh, was it my birthday party that Nancy met you? Okay. Well, because I don't know, it's because Mike's gay or what, but they became friends pretty quickly too. So there we are. Nancy also has a special place in our hearts when it comes to this podcast, because Nancy also helped us to coin the name of our show, Deep Space Pride. So Nancy, do you want to talk a little bit about how that went, how that experience was, how you came up with the name of our podcast?
Sure, happy to do it. So for a time, I was a naming strategist at a branding firm. And so I picked up all of these skills in like how to create a PowerPoint and etc. Well, I mean, the
I
creative
love PowerPoint. Continue.
yes. Well, the creative part of it was actually learning how to, I guess, funnel my creative energies into coming up with names for products and companies and services. And so this was a really fun little side project for me.
Yeah, we had like a briefing call. You asked us what we were looking for. You're like, what's your objective? What are your KPIs or whatever? And then you put together this whole presentation for us, which I really enjoyed.
It was great. It was so fun. So just a grand overview of what inspired me in coming up with the names or name candidates, if you will. I took a look at gay dating apps, then just general Star Trek podcast names, and then sort of gay interest podcast names rather. And so those were the three things that I lumped into this Venn diagram. And in the middle of that was our sweet spot, what we were looking for, right? Something that it intersectionalized sort of the gay experience,
Mm-hmm.
drew in a little bit of like the
I remember
fun.
the Venn diagram. Yeah.
Yes. I'm just trying to, I'm a very visual thinker. So when
Mhm.
I explain things to other people, I try to do it in a very visual way.
No, it was helpful. I liked it. I recall. And you even like, because when you did research on other gay podcasts and also Star Trek podcasts, I remember you kind of extracting some initial thoughts about those, what stood out to you, and how those elements you would potentially influence the name of our podcast. I remember it very, very distinctly.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the work.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I enjoyed the work as well. And so yeah, what we basically came to, and it's obviously an open discussion, and this is your podcast, so it really had to have a branding and an identity that was true to what you were trying to accomplish and what you were trying to communicate. And I think you chose a great name, and it's got a nice ring to it. It ties to the franchise.
Mhm.
It's obviously it has pride in there, and I'm really happy with what you guys came up with or decided on.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, it
Sorry,
was,
Mike,
and no, it was in part of all the work you did. I mean, that was so helpful because we really didn't have an idea. I had one idea to start out with, but it wasn't.
What was are you allowed to like talk about?
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. Well, so the background of the podcast was that, Johnson and I met through Dennis, and we would chat about Star Trek Picard, which came out over a year ago now. And so we just got into this every time we like, have you watched it? Have you watched it? And so I had been thinking about doing a podcast for a while on just leadership stuff or whatever, my own podcast. But then I realized that one, I needed a hobby. And I think this is a great hobby. I call this my hobby podcast.
It was also the start of the pandemic, so we're all looking for things to do with our lives.
Yeah, that's true too. But I had the idea before the pandemic. So once we start, we started recording in March a year ago, really, but we had talked about it in February, or even towards, in January. So it was sort of a little bit before we went into quarantine. But the original idea, the idea that I came up with was the Picardians, kind of like the Kardashians. Because we were forming a friendship over primarily at the time Picard, but also we were both next generation kids who grew up watching it, and so that was kind of our foundation of it. And then so we, like, all of the early recordings say "Welcome to the Picardians" or whatever. So, when we wanted to go live with this, Johnson brought up bringing you into the mix to help us kind of ideate on ideas, because he wasn't in love with the Picardians, and And I mean, it wasn't either. It was just kind of an early idea just to give it a name the thing and then start the thing. So yeah, I mean, the whole presentation you did was amazing and so helpful and so insightful to bring in those three worlds, right? Dating, which we talk about. I mean, obviously I'm in a relationship. Johnson is out trying to be out there, but not really out there.
Barely.
And
No movement.
no movement. And we talk about Star Trek, obviously, but we also bring a gay perspective to it. So,
well, fun fact, I knew Johnson before he came out of the closet. And at one point, he moved into my apartment for a little over a year and used one of my closets. So we have that connection going.
Okay, so you made it sound like those happened like at the same time. So yeah, so I came out way before I moved in with you for a year. So I actually don't know.
Time is a construct.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're going for, but I think I get it.
I mean, that's a good, that
I did
touches on the highlights of some of your relationship over the last 20 years.
Yes.
I folded some time.
Yeah, you like collapsed.
Yes, you did.
Everything sounds like it happened at the same time, but it did
yes.
not. But Nancy, I thought that, like Mike is saying, I thought that was an amazing presentation. But I would also love for our listeners to hear a little bit about your experience at Star Trek, how you first was exposed to it. For our listeners that may be curious, Nancy is not as big an aficionado of Star Trek as Mike and I are. I would say that you had intermittent exposure over the years. You were exposed to TNG in the early years, but you didn't, I think, follow the Deep Space Nine or Voyager or anything like that, or then maybe here and there. But why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your background when it comes to Star Trek? If there's anything about the franchise that's particularly appealing to you, anything along those lines?
Sure. I'm sad to report that I am not a huge Trekkie. I don't know all of the trivia, but as a kid of the 80s and 90s, well, I mean, The Next Generation came out in the 90s. Late 80s.
Yeah, but it was like on syndication repeat throughout all of the 90s. So yeah.
I would say it was formative to my development into an adult. I think that it is phenomenal television. I think for its time, at least. I'm speaking specifically to The Next Generation because I didn't actually watch any of the other shows. I'm going to get around to watching Voyager and Deep Space
There's only
Nine.
like 800 something episodes of Star Trek for you to catch up on.
It's gonna happen
one day.
But I will say specifically regarding The Next Generation, seeing this idealized utopic future where there's no scarcity and there's complete abundance. Johnson and I talk about this all the time. It's like Star Trek is basically communism that works, right? There's a replicator, there's no hunger, there's no need, there is war between some alien groups and whatnot, but it's a different kind of war, than what we face here on Earth. In some ways, at least. But in a lot of other, very fundamental needs, there isn't really a lack. And in that sense, Star Trek portrays this very idealized society and world. And that's something that I've always really appreciated about it. And it's just that potential for this kind of utopia where mostly people live in peace and there is no lack and there is this harmony and there's this beauty in that. And there's this diversity, and not only diversity how we understand diversity in terms of race and ethnicity. There's alien worlds and Klingons can get along with maybe not Romulans or Ferengis, but like Betazoids and etc. So even with that, there is very much a lot of diversity portrayed on the ship and in the universe of Star Trek. And so there would be Asian American women, and there would be, African American women, and so in the characters of Guinan, and there's really like strong female characters who were diverse, and there was diversity across throughout the ship, and that's something that I really appreciated, even as an adult looking back now, having that kind of entertainment available to me. As this young kid, I'm a first generation Chinese American woman, and growing up in America, and seeing that diversity played out in this utopic setting was very much, I don't know, echoed to me like the reality that I hope for in America. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. Yeah. And, Nancy, I don't know if you listened to our first episode, because, Mike and I basically did an intro and we talked a little bit about our experience of Star Trek and what has drawn us to the franchise. And in a similar way, obviously our experiences are a little bit different. Our angle, I think, is similar, though, in the sense that for us, and Mike, I don't want to speak for you, so you can chime in, and I don't want to just repeat what we said in our first episode, but I think this idealized future where people are able to experience, live out, and celebrate their differences, whether it be their ethnic differences in beliefs, differences in their species, obviously Star Trek takes it on another level, but the analogy is there that there is this future where people can not live in the shadows and allow their differences to add to a greater whole. And for us, particularly when it comes to being part of the LGBTQ community, I think that was somewhat appealing, even in our formative years, even before either Mike or I even came out or even realized we were gay and things like that. Things like that really resonated. But Mike, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's, it did give you a picture of what the world should be like. And so that really resonated with me, Nancy, when you said that, especially since you're a first generation American, Chinese American, that definitely, that idealized world of, that you kind of hoped America would be, and that we still have I believe we still have the potential to be. We may not be living up to our potential right now, but I think that's certainly one of the reasons why I love Star Trek, is the idea that everyone can be themselves, and that's okay. That's accepted. It's actually not just okay, it's accepted and embraced, and your gifts and your talents are utilized in a way that is best for you and best for the society. So I think that's definitely, and you see a painting, you see a picture of a world of how it should be. I think for me, the Next Gen was definitely what I grew up on, but I started my Star Trek love with the original series. So, seeing a diverse cast like that, the entire world was encompassed on the bridge of the Enterprise in the original series. So, that's definitely the image I grew up in, is that people, I didn't grow up hating Russians because, Chekhov was a Russian, and Sulu was an Asian, and Uhura was representing the African culture, and all of that put together made a picture for the world as it should be. And so it was always that utopian, I think one of the things that it does lack, and certainly you see it a little bit. You see snippets of it, is this conflict, and interpersonal conflict is definitely part of the world, no matter what, even in a utopia. So Deep Space Nine goes a little bit deeper with that interpersonal conflict, which I think is good. And I think every series that's come out has expanded the franchise in a different and new way. So, that's definitely why I love every iteration of it for what it brings to the table. I may not love every part of it, but I certainly
Like what, Neelix?
Yeah, like Neelix is not my favorite.
Neelix is so underrated. Anyway,
yeah, we all have our favorite shows, and that we don't all. I'm rewatching Voyager like Johnson is again, and
yes,
we're. I'm not the biggest fan, but of the show. I mean, maybe it was just during the time of my life when it was on. It was just a different time for me, but
the late 90s.
Yeah,
so long ago.
Yeah, it was so long ago. But any Star Trek, they work towards showing how people can work together, can live together, can succeed together, and I think that that's really what Star Trek is all about.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, Nancy. Yeah, I think that we all have our different experiences when it comes to Star Trek. But I think that the great thing is it is one of those things that does allow us to kind of aspire for something greater and better. And I think at the end of the day, that's what Star Trek's all about. And like Mike's saying, we all take something different away from it. We all have different things that we gravitate to. And I think that's a great thing about Star Trek, that, it has something for everyone. Anyway, awesome. So as part of this episode, we wanted to continue our celebration of Women's History Month because it is March. And coincidentally, Nancy is a woman. So that helps. And our last episode was talking about some of our favorite characters. Well, Mike and I, rather, talked about some of our standout characters from The Next Generation. And we did not really touch on Deanna Troi because for whatever reason, Mike and I just didn't choose her as kind of like our main, like our favorite lead female of The Next Generation, or, she doesn't go into the supporting category either. But we're making it up to Deanna in this episode because we are going to be talking about Deanna Troi / Marina Sirtis for our entire segment. So yeah, let's talk about Deanna Troi. So what we decided to do is we watched a couple of episodes that feature Deanna, and we will get into that. But first, I think it would be nice for us to kind of just talk about Deanna Troi and, what we think about the character at large. So, Nancy, you are our guest. So why don't you talk a little bit about Deanna Troi and what you think of her as a character?
I think she is arguably, this is based on the limited number of flashback episodes I was able to watch between Thursday and today, one of the strongest characters, strongest female voices on the show, who is able to exhibit her full or explore the complexity of what it is to be a betazoid, half human woman. And the counselor on the Enterprise. Later, I think she becomes like a commissioned officer, right? So
you
can fill in the factual.
It confused me, and I probably need to go back to the memory alpha page when it comes to Deanna, because she is a Starfleet officer, but she
doesn't have any lapels.
Pins,
so
pips.
She doesn't have.
I don't know, Mike, do you know this? Because later on she does become like she becomes like a lieutenant commander. She goes through,
and then a commander. Yeah, she goes through the command. Yeah, she goes through the command training or training program to
But I mean, she went to Starfleet. She went to Starfleet Academy. It's not like she was just a counselor that's randomly on the flagship of Starfleet. Like
Right.
she's commissioned. But
Well,
I
I was
don't
thought
know.
it was interesting that she sat in the bridge as a non-commissioned person when
She
was
was commissioned. She was commissioned.
but
Yeah.
she didn't have the lapel because they wanted to show her cleavage.
Yes. Yeah,
She didn't have
absolutely.
the
They were.
cleavage and a lapel.
Yeah, no, that you can't have both. You can have cleavage or your pips, and they chose the cleavage part of this.
Her bunny suit.
Yeah. I mean, it was obviously to bring some sex appeal. Her first season outfits were drastically more drab and maybe a little bit more uniformy than her season 2 ones were. But one of the things that intrigued me about Deanna from the start was just her relationship. She had a pre-existing relationship with the first officer, and so that was always an interesting.
Beta Z, right?
Yeah.
Well, did they meet at the academy? Or am I conflating like the novels with like?
I think it might be. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think in Menage a Troi they talk about the last time they were when he left her.
Yeah,
he left her
met.
Beta Z. No, I don't know when they met. I'm sure it's explored somewhere, and when that's neither here nor there. But they had a pre-existing relationship, so that was always interesting. And she talked into his head from the start, So they did create that. I mean, honestly, it was nice to kind of see I hadn't seen Menage a Troi in a long time, and it was nice to see them, experience some of that romance. I mean, they kissed. They were holding hands, walking along.
I know. Well, that was also a little confusing because I was like, but they're like not together, but they're very intimate.
Yeah.
Because they were like walking through the flowery field and they were holding hands. And then he reaches down and kisses her. I'm like, what is happening right now?
Yeah.
They're not together.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
I was like, all right, sure.
But I thought it was nice. It was nice to see that because we hadn't really seen that in a while. Like
it's
any
rare.
sort of, we don't even really get to see it even more so until the movies, right? Till Insurrection and from there. So, and obviously into the future, on the Titan and so forth. But yeah, I thought, having an empath on I don't know what Jean's original vision of having an empath on the bridge was, or how that, I guess we should go back and look at kind of the Next Generation Bible that they created for the show, and kind of what the purpose of this crew was. But I thought that we needed a show with more women represented, and I think that's what Jean created. Female security officer, female counselor, a female doctor, so half the cast was female, and I think it definitely needed that difference. I think that, again, Gene was pushing the boundaries back in 1986 when he wrote this show to move women forward to some extent. Do we want to kind of dig into the episodes that we did watch and talk about how we've highlighted Deanna?
Yeah.
Some standout episodes for her. And Nancy, you brought a couple of these episodes you said, this is what I've watched. Can we talk about this one or that, this one? But why don't we start at the earliest episode? And we kind of skipped over season 1, and we all kind of generally agree that season 1 was kind of a crapshoot when it came to episodes. But so we jump right in with talking about The Child, which was the season 2 opener.
Captain, obviously the pregnancy must be terminated for the safety of the ship and the crew.
Worf, you can't assume the intent was belligerent.
That is the safest assumption.
Captain, this is a life form. Not to allow it to develop naturally would deny us the opportunity to study it.
If the fetus is aborted, laboratory analysis is still possible.
Doctor, is there any health risk to Counselor Troi if the fetus is aborted?
Captain, do whatever you feel is necessary to protect the ship and the crew. But know this. I'm going to have this baby.
And it seems that the discussion is over.
And Johnson, when you were watching it, you were like, look at all these. Both Johnson and I love talking about like starships, and how they look on screen and whatnot. So there were some cool visuals, and a very orchestrative opening to the second season. I don't know if you picked up on that, Johnson, but then we get into seeing the differences between season 1 and season 2. I think most notably, Riker got a beard, Wesley got a uniform, Worf switched to yellow, to gold, and is now security chief. We have Geordi, who's chief engineer, which they mentioned in this episode. So it's a lot of foundation, but then we get right into, as they're leaving orbit, this entity enters the Enterprise, and
the introduction of Dr. Catherine Pulaski.
Oh yes, yeah.
There were actually a lot in this there was a lot in this episode because we
like a reboot.
I mean, there's a bit of a change. Yeah, I mean, like in addition to, there was some changes in the background, like like in terms of production, but so we got Captain Pulaski, we got Guinan. This was also Guinan.
Yeah.
So there were some.
Dr. Pulaski is probably my favorite minor female character, just because like she cannot be bothered. She cannot
be bothered. She's very, very different from Beverly Crusher when it comes to a supporting character or main cast.
I have a lot of respect for this lady.
But she was also in 2 episodes of the original series. She played 2 characters.
I didn't know that
in the original series. Yeah, so so she's familiar to Star Trek, at least in that way. But she definitely brings a different energy, different dynamic. I mean, we've lost 2 female leads, and now we've gained a 2 kind of guest stars who actually impact things a lot more than some would say the 2 stars that they replaced.
Yeah, this episode was interesting. And Nancy, I remember that when you had basically started to make an attempt to watch all of TNG, which stopped. But again, so we're in season 3, I think. But I do remember you kind of calling out The Child as an interesting episode, and that it was, it stood out to you. So do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about your takeaways from this episode and what you thought was interesting?
Sure. I wrote some notes.
We love notes.
Yes, notes.
I was watching through the episode, and literally, this is one of the reasons why I respect Dr. Pulaski, because how we're introduced to her is they're all on the bridge, right? And Jean-Luc Picard goes, where's
this bitch? Like,
where
is she?
And someone, and LaForge is like, with the tracker thing, he's like, she's in 10 forward. And Worf was like, oh, that's not a good start. And so Picard goes to 10 forward to look for her. And the first thing she says to him was, sit down, Captain. You better listen to this. Like, they didn't even have a formal like handshake or anything like that.
She didn't care.
She's just like, I don't care who you are. You're the captain, whatever. Listen, I'm doing my job here. So that's when we learn, it goes from there and it cuts into their, what was it, the interrogation room? I don't know, whatever.
No, it's a brief. It's like it's not an interrogation.
The conference room.
It's like a conference room. Yeah, it's like what they have.
You can just correct, what I call things. It's fine. So they go into the conference room and they're all sitting around, and this is such a personal thing to share, right? But then Dr. Pulaski is like, well, Deanna's pregnant, to the entire room. And you have like all the men, and I think it was LaForge and Worf and Picard and Data.
Mm-hmm.
and then you had Dr. Pulaski, and then Troi, and then Dr. Crusher, I think. No,
Dr. Crusher's not on the show.
I don't know who else was in the room.
No, she was
But
not.
basically, all of the men, it like pans the room, and all of the men are like, like, like scandal, like in Bridgerton or something, like something scandalous has happened.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the most scandalized is Riker, because it almost looks like,
Yeah, he was like WTF.
He's like,
who's the father?
Did we do a mistake? Like, he does ask, like,
he was the most incredulous.
I don't mean to sound indelicate, but who is the father? Like, he almost like half screams it. But it's so interesting, the scene, because if you actually watch that scene, there's all this chatter in the room, but it cuts to the fetus. And I think it's because the fetus is, Dr. Pulaski describes the fetus as being half human and half betazoid, just like Deanna. So Deanna and the fetus have already have this like betazoid bond. And it cuts to the fetus listening to the chatter in the room. And the viewer, or at least I got the sense that, they are bonded in a way where this chatter around them, at one point, Worf is like, we need to have an abortion. Like, this needs to be aborted immediately. And
yeah, it was like very clinical. They were talking about it very clinically because I think it was Data that was like, oh, like this warrants further study, and we can't do that if it's like the process is aborted. And then Worf was like, well, if you abort it, the fetus can still be examined. I was like, what the hell? Like, it was a very odd conversation. It was very clinical in a sense. And I thought it was interesting in that they were purposely having the men talk about it this way.
Yeah, it was really harsh.
Yeah.
Really harsh.
Well, that's how it's done in the US Senate. So
yeah, like, I think there was a little bit, there was a little messaging there.
This is like 30 years out from, then, but those kinds of conversations are still happening like that. But anyways, not to get off topic down the rabbit hole of abortion and women's rights and all that, but I thought this was a very nuanced way of just like specifically exploring Deanna through the lens of this hostile takeover of her body through this alien. And, I think she does bond with this fetus because she is extra human. She is betazoid. And I think just seeing her through that lens, like, I don't think it can be extrapolated into, that's why it's not a rabbit hole, because we can't talk about abortion rights as a whole, because it's very specific to this alien, like half alien.
Right. It's a very unusual situation.
By this other alien being who impregnates her, So
I do think it was a very cool moment for Deanna, though, because at the end, she interrupts them, right? And she's like, Captain Picard, you can do whatever you want to protect the ship, but I'm having this baby.
Yes.
And I thought that was a great moment. Like, because she was just like having none of it. And then Picard was like, I guess the discussion's over.
Yeah, she put the men right in their place at that point. And I think that was, I wish we could show just that scene to like you said, the US Senate today, or, it's unfortunate that these things that Star Trek talks about for the last 55 years are still in play today. And Johnson and I talked about it with Far Beyond the Stars, certainly with Women in Motion with Nichelle Nichols. There's just so many things that are still in play today when it comes to women's rights, and that this episode is really appropriate for.
Right. But then the next scene, it cuts to her being pregnant and waddling around on the bridge. And I don't know how many other prego people have graced the bridge, but there she is. She's just out there. And I think just in general in the 80s, that was just something that's not seen on television, right? Like the whole how people are born is just somehow like taboo. Like you're not supposed to talk, because if you talk about that, then you have to talk about where do the babies come from? Like God forbid you have to talk about sex.
But kudos to her for going to work. I mean, I think that that's also a statement of she's still doing her job. She's still going to the bridge to do her job. And I think that that's a huge statement for women in general.
Yeah. And I think it was great for representation's sake, to see it on the television and to just acknowledge that pregnancy is a state of being and normalize pregnancy, normalize, these things. So anyways, and I think, I'm not sure, I might be conflating all around, but there are very many times where like, Deanna's just able to ugly cry on screen. She's not one of these dainty criers where you see this like lone tear dribble down her cheek. She's like actively crying. And I think that like, I don't know if she gets a pass because she's half Betazoid to just be her full, like there's just this idea or this thinking of women that women are overly emotional, therefore they cannot be completely rational beings because the emotions take over, etc. But I think, this speaks to Deanna as a character that I respect a lot, is because she's able to fully, I think, portray or fully show her EQ and her IQ. They're never in doubt, just because she ugly cries, her opinion can be discounted, or just because she has this outburst, her opinion can be overlooked. It's
like she can still be a professional. Like it's not like, yeah.
And you don't really see that in any of the other female characters. They can't like explode 1 minute. They don't have these emotional outpourings in addition to their professional work. Dr. Crusher, for example, I think she's a very, I don't know if stoic is the right word, but she
has her moments. Yeah. She has.
It's not central to her character though, right? Because like Deanna, you can expect like, I want chocolate, I want to cry, I'm gonna, counsel you and be really great and professional, here. But she has these different facets that she gets to show.
I think that comes with the territory of her being a counselor and kind of a new role that we've never seen in Star Trek before, is that idea that, it's not, she is not wearing a uniform per se, like a typical standard uniform, but she is respected on the bridge. I mean, she has the captain's ear. She does, is asked for her opinions, and she's also an empath. So that's sort of, I wonder if that's the excuse that that is given for why she's able to have these emotional roller coaster type situations happen and not have it be a problem because of the difference in role, the difference in, her being, she's not all human. So it's kind of, she's, half alien, and the alien half is the empath side. So I'm wondering if that's why it was so accepted.
Yeah, she's like just more in touch with her feelings because, like you're saying, Mike, like it's part of her job to kind of be able to kind of tap into that a little bit. But yeah, is there anything else that we want to talk about when it comes to the child? I do like some of the Mike, you touched on this, but I do think that there are some cool shots in this episode. Like one, actually that shot with Wesley in 10 Forward was really cool, where you see the outside.
Was excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, and you pan down to deck 10 and you see him standing in the window. But then when you go to the interior and it's talking to Guinan and the ship pans away from the planet, and then it goes to warp. We rarely get that kind of shot actually from the interior of the ship when this is like now the nerd part of the conversation.
Yeah, it is for
but
sure.
you know, rarely
I want to
sit.
bring up one final thing about Deanna in this episode.
Oh, okay. Give me a second. But then when we go to warp from the interior of the ship, we rarely see that on TN.
Yeah,
So that was a really cool shot.
And I had to think through that because I was paying attention. I saw that and I was like, ooh, that's we haven't seen that in a while. And then it's actually they're turning towards the sun because the sun comes into this shot.
Yeah,
and then they keep on turning.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, they can't go to warp until they're out of they're not going to warp around the sun.
Right.
So it's almost like they really thought through that shot.
Yeah, it's a very cool shot.
And the sun came, and then you had more dark, and then it wasn't until a few minutes later where they went to warp. So it was really well thought out, like how the ship, someone did their science homework and figured out, and here's where the planet is, and like took the ship and like turned it just so, and like really thought that out really well.
That was great.
That was great.
And then even later, and this is minor, but when Deanna is putting Ian to bed, and then she like retracts the shade, I was like, oh, that's rare. We don't really see the shade come down on a window.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, that's cool. Like just like these small details, and I was like, oh, that's something extra. That kind of made this episode kind of stand out a little bit more for me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sure.
And Nancy,
what are your
we went off on a tangent.
What are some of your final thoughts?
Those elements, but what I did notice during the birthing scene, she doesn't go full orgasm, but she is in a state of ecstasy.
Well, she did mention that it seems like this birth was very different.
Right. She felt no pain whatsoever.
Right.
But then you have Riker looking over her shoulder, and I got a hint of sexuality, like in that moment, like a little bit of a arousal, if you will.
I didn't sense that at all.
I mean, we go from she's pregnant on the bridge to she's having like maybe an orgasm. Like if the camera stayed on her a little bit longer, maybe we would have gotten there.
Interesting.
And it just, I don't know. These are all very like newish things to be able to like see.
I thought it was more awkward because Worf and his security guards came in and they were just standing there, and I was like, this is really awkward. And Will was creeping in the corner. I was like, there's a lot of people here right now.
Midwife. It's like all that's true. There's like all these men around her in these weird roles.
Oh yeah, Data. Oh
yeah, that was
sweet.
And he was peppering her with questions. Remember, right?
Yeah.
She was about to give birth. He was just like, "What? Can you describe exactly how you're feeling?"
Yeah, he had all the questions.
Yeah.
So cool. That was our overview of the child, and we had some interesting takeaways there. So why don't we move on to the next episode that we had watched, Menage a Troi, which is a season 3 episode.
I get a great deal of satisfaction out of my work.
Oh, well, I'm sure you do. I'm sure it's very rewarding in its way, but what about a family?
This is my family. My friends here on the Enterprise.
All right. In case I have to spell it out for you, I am talking about finding a husband, having a child. That's what made me happy. At least until now.
Mother, look. Perhaps someday I will marry. But you have to let me make my own choices, live my own life, and not the life that you would choose for me.
You had your chance with Commander Riker. Look how you ruined that.
I did not ruin anything. We've become very good friends.
Well, all the better. You certainly wouldn't want to marry an enemy. I see we can't talk about this. Very well. Have it your own way, little one.
Little one? You called me that when I was 5. Now stop demeaning me and address me as an adult.
I'll be home on Beta Z if you need me, little Deanna.
So for those of you that may not remember this episode, this was a Loxana episode. So Major Bad Roddenberry made an appearance here as Deanna's mother. So Nancy was interested in your takeaways about this episode and what you thought about it.
Well, It was very interesting and also very personal to me, one of the plot lines of it, because basically you have a mother coming in and telling her daughter what she ought to do with her life, which is to find a husband and settle down and have pop out some babies. And she is responding back, this ship is my family, the crew is my family. Like, I don't need that life, the life that you're trying to impose on me to feel content or to feel complete or to feel whole. And I really appreciated that that exchange between them. I mean, that's obviously not the point of the episode, but that was something that was brought up
right from the beginning too. That's at the beginning of the episode.
And why is that? Why does it strike a personal chord to you?
Oh, well, and also, well, this is unrelated, but I was thinking a little bit about being half. She's essentially a hybrid being, right? She's half Betazoid and half human. And, I'm, as previously mentioned, Chinese American. I'm fully Chinese, but I grew up here in America to Chinese parents. So I grew up in essentially two cultures. And I was thinking about it in terms of that, that hybrid reality, that idea of having one foot in different cultures.
Right.
And I think for her, what was interesting about why I thought about that was even in the beginning when they were in, I think, 10 Forward, and Luxana is it Luxana or Lawaxana?
Luxana.
Luxana.
LWAN.
It's kind of hard to say, but anyways.
Luxana, yeah.
Luxana,
I wanted to make it sound more alien, so.
Yeah. So she's like trying to telepathy with her daughter, right? Like she's talking to her telepathically.
Yeah.
And Deanna was like, when we're around humanoids, it's not polite to have these internal conversations. And the mom was just kind of like, oh, whatever, these humanoids. And that just, to me, I don't know, triggered something in me where it's like, definitely growing up in these two cultures, as I mentioned, I definitely got messaging from my mom, about like the Chinese way of doing things was somehow better. And it just reminded me, and it triggered that in me, which was, it's a minor thing, but it's like so interesting how I watched that and what it elicited in me. So those were some things I wanted to pull out in the very beginning that didn't have anything to do with like the major plot line of the action.
No, I think, I think a major thing about this episode is kind of diving a little bit deeper into their mother-daughter relationship. I think that those are totally valid points because, as you're saying, like there are elements of their relationship that really resonate with you in that regard. And for me, like what totally resonated with me was later when Deanna goes to her mother's quarters to kind of apologize and be like, sorry, I kind of blew up at you earlier, right? It's not like 2 minutes later, she's like storming out, like because Luxana is kind of going back to like there's the triggers, right? Like Deanna has when Luxana.
She's calling her little one. Little one was the trigger. Yeah.
And for me and my mom, I'm obviously my mom and I, it's not like a mother-daughter relationship, but I am her only child. Like she always refers to me. I think it's also the Chinese of it all because, for our listeners that don't know, I'm also Chinese. She refers to me as like a child, like, but I think sometimes the terminology is, that doesn't mean like you're not an adult. It's just like, but sometimes the way that she says it makes me feel like juvenile. And that scene totally resonated with me because sometimes my mom totally makes it sound like I can't make decisions or, I can't figure things out. And I'm like, I've been like living by myself for like 20 years. I think I know how to like do basic things, you know? So that scene totally resonated with me in just how, because sometimes the conversation with my mom will be like, totally fine, it's cordial, it's going okay. And then she'll say one thing and I go off the handle. And I think that this is totally what happens. Deanna goes in with great intentions. She wants to, settle things, reconcile, leave things on a good note. And seconds later, it's all over. But yeah, Mike, I don't know. Did you have any notes from this episode in terms of standouts to you?
I mean, I think, I love the dynamic between Picard and Loxana. I think that him avoiding her at the very beginning was also very, very funny. And I'm trying to remember, I mean, I guess this is not the first time she was on the show. And it's been a while since I've watched like complete seasons of Next Generation. So I'm I'm pretty sure there are at least one or two other episodes where she's been on the show already. But
there was like, I think Haven. I think it was a season 2 episode.
Yeah, it's just funny how he navigates so far away from her. Like he says, "Oh, I'm gonna go show Data and I are gonna go show the minister
like something. I don't remember.
Turbo lifts, you know, and like totally avoided her, and I thought that really resonated for me. Like that's something that we can all kind of, either getting away from someone's mom or just getting away from an annoying person. I think that's very very true to real life. So that really resonated for me. I as I said earlier, I really like to see Riker and Troy kind of rekindle that romance that we've always been hinted at. Even in The Child, his reaction is of someone like a spurned lover. Like, I thought I was the only one who, so I think that, there's that, the Ferengi. I don't know. Did you recognize, this is definitely not off. This is slightly off topic. I'm pretty sure Ethan Phillips is one of the Ferengi.
What? Was he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was the Dr. Ferengi on that episode.
What?
So,
are you sure? We can look it up.
Yeah, well,
I didn't
look
know.
it up, but I am almost sure that it was him. So that was cool to see. I thought seeing the 3-dimensional chess being played was a cool callback to the original series as well. So we got a lot of great scenes. I thought that how, and I don't know that I noticed this before, like when they beamed Deanna and Loxana from the brig to the captain's room, and they were suddenly naked. I thought that the visual
was, females do not deserve the honor of clothing.
Yeah.
Very triggered.
Well, very triggered.
Wow.
Well, that is the Ferengi culture. Like, women don't wear clothes.
Yeah, their women don't wear clothes, and but visually, the beaming and the clothes dropping, I thought was great.
That was a cool visual.
Yeah,
Nancy, sorry, what were you gonna try to
say?
Go
ahead, Nancy.
He said it. It wasn't even just that, like culturally speaking, their women don't wear clothes. It's the line was, they do not deserve the honor of clothing. It wasn't even just like, oh, they're just used to, being in the buff or whatever. It's apparently an honor to have clothing, which females do not have the honor of.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really explore the Ferengi that well in The Next Generation. We get bits and pieces here, but they're explored much more extensively in Deep Space Nine, which I totally recommend that you watch one day. But they did a great job of actually fleshing out Ferengi culture, because Quark was like one of the main characters in his Ferengi.
The guy who the bartender.
Yes, good job.
Yeah, very good.
He handled the gambling.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly.
It was an establishment.
Drips and drabs.
Yeah. But
well, the Ferengi were originally thought to be the big enemy that were.
I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah, they didn't really think that one out. They didn't that's how it started, at least in
Yes.
season 1. They were the enemy,
Mhm.
and also their ships were significantly, they matched the Enterprise for
Yeah, they're
sure,
pretty
if not.
powerful.
Yeah, so I think that it's interesting to see the development of the Ferengi
Yeah.
throughout Next Generation, which does lead to Quark and to even deeper dives into Ferengi culture and Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, so trivia note. So yes, they tried to introduce Ferengi as a major antagonist for the show. They were not very well received. So then they came up with the Borg. So that was basically the solve. And obviously that was, I think, a much more successful antagonist for the series. But in terms of
for this pairing, though, is that trivia fact is that Betazoids can't read Ferengi minds.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because of the way their Data was trying to nerd out on and explain, because he was like, he alluded to the fact of like how their brains are
they're like 4 hemispheres.
Yeah. Kind of like a cow's stomach.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, it's 4 something. But I was trying to say that on Deep Space Nine, we get much more into the culture of the Ferengi, and basically women they can't do anything. Like, they don't wear clothes, they can't have property, they can't have jobs. They're all,
it's like so interesting. They're at a high technological level, but societally and culturally, how we would, as humanoids would describe them is that they're pretty backward.
Right. I mean, they're driven by capitalism. And I think actually in Deep Space Nine, it was explored that, because I think the question was like, yeah, they're so advanced technologically. How does this make sense? I think there was a conversation about that, and they bought their technology. It wasn't like,
I have a QAnon conspiracy.
What?
What?
Like literally QAnon conspiracy.
I don't get it.
Like Q just goes around because he's there to sow chaos. It's like, let's make this like backward kind of like alien tribe. Let's give them warp. Let's make them warp capable and throw them into the universe and
see what happens.
And let's watch what happens. Because it's like, how on earth? Because also how they're portrayed in this episode, unfortunately, they're not very intellectually like deft, right? Like they can't win at the chess. Like
at the chess.
This Damon Togg, who's the leader of the ship, is like, not very with it. And like the doctor is about to, basically they're going to have a coup d'etat from the doctor who wants to keep the females alive to study.
Right. I think that this actually speaks, unfortunately, to the Ferengi as a species, where they eventually become kind of the joke. Like, they're kind of portrayed as like these, they have their moments, but they're also kind of like simpletons.
Yeah.
Because most of the Ferengi episodes on Deep Space Nine, they're done for comedy versus they're very serious.
Hence my QAnon theory.
All right.
Take it or leave it.
Now we're just kind of conflating different things.
Yeah. Although that did bring to mind when you said buying, they bought their technology versus what's the Pac-Leds who steal their technology.
And
end up being being a huge threat in Lower Decks. So another
we're talking about, but it's okay.
Another very simpleton race that acquires through power and through stealing.
So Ferengi does it through commerce, but yes. Anyway, what did anything else stand out for us when it comes to this episode?
I mean, weren't there a lot of, and maybe Nancy, you picked up on this, there were a lot of telepathic conversations between Lwaxana and Deanna that were, where they were not fighting, right? They weren't at odds. They were working together. So
I'm just gonna put it out there, like when Lwaxana has sex with Damon Togg, like, and the fact that Deanna can feel it, I would not want
I don't think they really have sex. She just gives him umox. Yeah.
I think that the camera cuts away.
I don't think they
I think you need to rewatch that because
Okay, well,
the look on Deanna's face.
No, there is. Yeah. I mean, but
like,
I think it was just general
more than
disgust.
the
I
level
don't
of disgust that it takes to like rub someone's ear down. There's
Yeah,
definitely some other kind of rubbing happening.
I don't think they have that kind of sexual encounter. But
I mean, that's how I read it. So
Okay. I mean, off screen is what you make of it, right? So, and you're right though. Deanna did have a strong reaction at some point right after that. So I mean, yeah, I think anything could have been happening there. You're right, Nancy. I think
yeah, it goes off screen, so
yeah,
it's hard to say definitively what happens or what doesn't happen.
And can I say I'm allowed to because I'm a woman. But Loxana's cleavage is phenomenal. Like she's a very fit woman of her age.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, she isn't afraid to show it off either.
5 stars would recommend.
Cool. So we had a chance to talk through both The Child and Menage a Troi.
Deanna is such a strong character, and I think she's an example of how Marina stuck it out. I'm sure it wasn't easy losing 2 female co-stars.
Yeah,
kind of being on her own. I mean, it would be interesting, someday if we
get Marina Sirtis on the show and he interview her.
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk to her about what it was like at the end of season 1 and when she was the only female left standing, and what that summer was like, that break from taping. Yeah. And how she maintain the relationships with Gates and Denise, or
People love chocolate.
Maybe
she loves chocolate.
Maybe.
I wonder if she likes chocolate in real life. She probably hates it or something.
But she's it's interesting because she is so much more outspoken now than I think she
like Marina
was.
Sirtis, right?
Yes, Marina.
Oh my god, I see like a lot of her tweets because
she takes on
I follow
people.
Her. She's very political.
Yeah, she is.
Not shy.
She is not shy, which I think is
and
great.
she's like shady too. Like she's like, sometimes people will like respond to her on Twitter, and she is just like, she doesn't back down. It's really
yeah. So kudos to Marina for that. But yeah, I think that it must have been tough to kind of go through those 7 seasons and really stick it out and be the one who was there the whole time. So she was there the whole run of Next Generation, and she got a few episodes here and there, but even 7 years into this, you're still getting only 1 or 2 shows that focus on you out of 26 episodes.
I know. I think that was a struggle because we were, when we were talking to Nancy about what episode should we watch about Deanna, and we were like, what episodes are there? Because there are some good ones.
Yeah.
But it's like probably on average 1, maybe 2 a season.
Yeah.
And I think that honestly, as much as we do commend the Next Generation and Star Trek in general for kind of pushing the female agenda forward, I think that I think the women of the Next Generation kind of got shafted. Like, they were just, and Nancy, you referred to this earlier, like, like they're not really given like really rich, complex stories. I do think Deanna
isn't enough.
There is, like Data had so much to work with, right?
Yeah.
Like his quest to find humanity, right? And what it meant to be human. And that's really rich storytelling for them to tap into. But then that means that, Marina Sirtis and Gates McFadden are left with these side stories. Like they're basically leftovers, and they do their best with it.
I would also say they invested a lot into little Ensign Wesley.
They did. I mentioned that on the last episode.
Yeah.
Wesley Crusher got more screen time than his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, but I do think that overall, I think our takeaway with Deanna Troi is that, both her and also Marina Sirtis, who played her, in a lot of these episodes, has a lot thrown at her. She spontaneously becomes pregnant. She is kidnapped by the Ferengi and kind of thrown into the situation, and kind of needs to kind of deal with these situations. And I think in all of them, she kind of is able to grow and evolve and kind of show how adaptable she is as a person. So I think kudos to both Marina and to Deanna as a character.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that.
Cool. So we have only a few minutes left. So why don't we drop by, as we're talking about it, Deanna Troi's office and do a little bit of dishing of Deanna.
Come in. Hi.
You got a minute?
Sure.
So Nancy, this is the first time that you're with us on this podcast. So basically,
hopefully not the last.
Maybe not the last. We'll see you back for our 50th episode, maybe. So this is the segment where we talk just a little bit about what's going on in our personal lives and, you know, how things are going. And Nancy, you are our guest. So why don't you start? What would you like to share with Deanna?
Who's Deanna in this scenario? Are you Deanna?
It's really just sharing with the universe. It's not really.
Yeah.
I'm not actually your counselor.
Yeah, this is where we share what's going on with our lives, with our listeners, not viewers. Listeners, no one's viewing this.
No one's watching this.
No one is watching this. So yeah, this is your chance to kind of tell us what's going on in your life. You know, you're out there in LA, New York City girl in LA, La La Land. Tell us what's going on out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're 3 hours behind, so there's that. And I always constantly have to do simple maths to figure out when things are happening with my East Coast buddies. But fun personal fact, my birthday is tomorrow.
Yes.
March 8th, which is always International Women's Day.
Hooray.
So
yeah.
I'm happy to be able to say when people wish me a happy birthday, I can wish them back a happy International Women's Day.
Yes.
Was there something else I was supposed to share?
Oh my gosh. Well,
whatever you want
all,
to share.
Well, all right. So let's ask you since you need some help, we'll be the counselor
Yeah,
and
help.
ask some leading questions here.
Counselor
So you
needs to ask some leading questions.
Oh, wait,
So-
I have another thing to volunteer. So in the spirit of, I just saw Nomadland, which was very beautifully done.
I didn't watch it.
I don't recommend it for people who really like strong plot lines, because this is a little bit nomadic and meandering.
Mm-hmm.
But it's beautifully shot and there are some beautiful vistas in it.
Asian
how it
director,
relates
right?
to my
Is
life-
that was that the big thing? Asian director?
Yes.
Yes.
Chloe Zhao. She's
Mm-hmm.
Chinese, not Chinese American. And she just won the
Golden Globe.
Globe for
Mhm.
directing.
Very good. Yeah.
How that ties into my life is that I'm currently a nomad out here in LA. I've been staying at the invitation of a friend out here, and
And it's been how long? 8 months? 8 months?
it will be 7 months soon.
7 months.
Okay.
In the midst of the pandemic, because everybody's at home all the time, he decides to completely renovate his home. So we have been on a nomadic journey, living in all different parts of LA, whilst the work is happening in his house. So here are the places we've lived so far. We have lived in the Pico Robertson area, which is a part of LA. It is what it is. We've lived in Pasadena, which is kind of like Little Asia, which was amazing for food exploration. It was a wonderful 2 weeks, but it was also very fattening. Or sorry, 1 week. We were there for 1 week. We are here in Beverly Hills, and tomorrow we are going to move to Studio City. So it's been fun hopscotching all around and getting a feel for different neighborhoods. And
Is the end in sight for this nomadic, how are renovations proceeding? Like, are you going to go back to your friend's house?
Well, that's we shall see. I mean, if anybody has gotten anything renovated, they tell you
Like,
it'll
what's
be done
the
in
new
about-
ETA? Like, is there like a not even like an
you know,
estimate?
they say that you can move into one part of the house right now, but
Okay.
we've been, and it's just like, do you want to breathe in dust like every second? Like it's not pleasant.
It's not optimal.
I mean, first world complaining here.
Yes, first world problems.
Very, very first world, very privileged, very, I feel nothing but gratitude. And also, I've learned that I don't mind this nomadic life. Like, being a nomad is kind of fun. It's kind of an adventure. I've kind of pared down, like I wear the same 3 outfits. We're living out of a carry-on suitcase and, 3 other things, and like paring down on my toiletries because I don't want to keep on dragging around all these bottles and tubes and etc. So the simpler life.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds very cool.
Well, what about you, Mike? What's going on? Tomorrow's also a special day for you, right?
Actually, so while we were talking earlier, I was checking because I couldn't remember. It's actually today is actually.
Oh, look at you!
So
why don't you explain to our listeners what the
anniversary is? So actually, it's yesterday technically. So 10 years ago yesterday, I took the train down from Providence, Rhode Island, and moved here to New York City. And so today would have been my first day on the job where I worked for many years. And then
was that Apple?
That was Apple, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I worked for Apple down here for many years. And so yeah, today would have been 10 years ago was my first day at my new store down here. So
cool.
So yeah, so it's actually passed. I don't know why the 8th had stood out to me. I thought the 8th was the Monday, but it wasn't. So
how does this anniversary make you feel? Tell us everything.
I mean, I haven't actually. I was going because I thought it was in the future, so I thought I still had time to process it and like put my thoughts together. And now that it's not, I mean, coming to New York certainly has changed my life. It's been the song, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, I think is very true. And in fact, over the years, a number of people have told me that specifically who have grown up in New York, that if you can come to New York and stick it out and be on your own and do this, like you can do it anywhere. And so yeah, it's definitely been not the smoothest trip all the time. And it's funny because our mind kind of leads towards all those things that went wrong along the way. But in all honesty, like at this point, 10 years on, I am super happy. I am super fulfilled. And I'm just happy to be here. I met Dennis here. We are, so it's just it's a great feeling to, officially be called a New Yorker.
Yeah, I think, for those listeners that don't know, and I've mentioned in the past, but both Nancy and I are native New Yorkers. So I think in some ways we kind of take it for granted as to how interesting New York living can be. I mean, it's very enriching, and I think that there's a lot that the city offers. And I think we take it for granted a little bit. And I think for transplants, as such as yourself, I think that it's definitely an adjustment. And I think 10 years is probably, you have a good sense as to what New York offers and what it entails. And I know that Nancy has also voiced that during her little stay in LA, she has also missed New York. But
there's no place quite like it, really. You can't imagine what it's like to live in a bubble like New York City and be around so many different cultures and so many,
like blocks away, like
blocks away.
just
Yeah.
like,
Or a
okay.
subway ride, like
Mm.
it's definitely, I think the challenging part is that, the family that I'm close to is 4 hours away, and it's obviously it's been a year. Well, it's, been a year where I haven't gotten to see them a lot. So that's the hard part. But yeah, I mean, there's no place like New York, and if you can do it, I definitely recommend it. I mean, now there are historically low rent prices.
There
So
are, yeah.
if you've ever thought about it and you can work remotely, or if you're looking, like, now is a great time to come to New York and, start that adventure. But yeah, I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. I've met some great people here, some of my best friends, and some of, obviously my partner in crime. So yeah, it's been great. So
Yeah.
it's kind of yeah, it feels good to, I guess I'm glad I didn't think that it was yesterday, because that would have probably put a little more pressure on yesterday. But yeah, it's good to be, to have that milestone in the books. So yeah, that's what's going on with me. What about you? What's new in Johnson land? Have any more fish killed, disappeared,
Not
or
yet.
been eaten by
Yes.
your enemy?
Not yet, my enemy. No, my fish tank is actually doing okay right now. It's like week to week there are new things, but right now I would say the past 3 days it's been pretty good.
It's been a quiet news cycle for the fish tank.
Yeah, so no dead fish. I do have a couple of fish arriving this week actually that I'm very excited for.
Did the listeners know about the suicidal fish?
I think I've
mentioned,
so, yeah, I've mentioned how there have been fish that have left to their deaths. Yeah.
Yes.
But right now, no, there haven't been any major deaths. I would say in the past 2 weeks, which is good.
Several have disappeared.
Yeah, there have been some
Your anemone is a hungry one.
Well, those are the dumb fish that kind of just don't have the right survival instincts, I would say. But yeah, the fish tank's good. Work is good. I'm starting to. This is my 3rd month at my job.
Bravo.
Yeah, I'm starting to kind of find my groove, I think, and kind of figure out how things work. I mentioned last week I'm kind of just, I've adapted to kind of the pace of it, but I'm also just knowing, like, I think the thing about any new job is knowing the right people to kind of talk to about certain things, and this person is a person to talk to if you want to get this done, or this person is a person to talk to if you want to know something, like, so that's honestly been a big part of my first 2 months, because this is definitely a bigger company than my previous agency. So I think that I'm starting to get a sense of that. I don't think there's anyone, because like at my last job, I had like a work spouse, like someone who I just like really connected with and just got very attached. We would chat about everything, kind of like problem solve things together, and kind of like, we were partners in crime. I don't think there's that yet for me here. I think the remote thing is definitely, that's definitely a big factor. Like, because we only talk if something needs to get that. We can't like go out for a coffee, like if we need to discuss a client issue or get on call, like, that's when we chat. There aren't these like opportunities to have a very casual, just spontaneous conversation. And I think that is something that my last job I was at for 7 years. So that was different. Like I knew who was who. I was, you had these, by the time that the pandemic started, I had all these established relationships. So it was different. Now I think it's a matter of trying to figure out how to kind of develop those kind of relationships, but in the context of being all remote. So anyway, that's me. That's how I'm doing. But yeah, that's it. That's our drive-by with Deanna this week. So cool.
All right. Well, we should give a quick shout out to Fansets, one of our sponsors for the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. And since we talked about Deanna this week, I like to highlight what Fansets has for Deanna pins, and they have 3, which are really great.
3 Fanset pins.
They do. And so they have a micro crew pin of her. They have a Woman of Trek from series 1, and it's got the glitter from series 1, so that's kind of cool.
Okay.
They have glitter and non-glitter ones.
Okay.
Deanna got a glitter one.
Do you own any of these, Mike? Do you own any of these Deanna pins? Or
I do not own the Deanna pins. Remember, I have Nichelle Nichols and Jadzia Dax. So I have Uhura and Dax for my Women of Trek collection. And then they also have one of our favorite episodes from Picard was Nepenthe. So the episode pins from Picard season 1, episode 7 includes Deanna on it. And so that is also available. So if you, and these are just the Deanna pins. If there are a ton of other pins, hundreds of other pins that you can choose from.
Yes, all the pins. Yes,
all the pins. Yes. And if you use our promo code DS Pride, you'll get
capitals.
Yes, you're interrupting again.
I'm informing our listeners about information you are leaving out.
DS Pride is the code that you need to put in all caps, and you will get 10% off your order.
Yeah,
and if you spend $30, you're going to get free shipping.
Yeah, it's free shipping.
There we go. So check out Fansets at fansets.com. And I believe that if you still go to trekgeeks.com/vote, you can vote for your favorite choice for a new Women of Trek pin, and also win both the Series 1 and Series 2 collections of those pins if you're so luckily chosen. So go there and vote on your favorite Woman of Trek, and maybe they'll get chosen to be part of Series 3's Women of Trek pins from Fansets.
Yeah, Fansets.
There we go.
Cool. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for being our guest.
Our first guest. Yeah.
Yes, our first guest.
So fun. I feel so honored, and I'm also honored to be clothed. To be able to wear clothing.
Because are you usually kind of just in loungewear?
Well, I'm not usually, taken hostage by Ferengis, so I do have the.
Oh, okay. Now
yes.
The reference was slightly lost on me, but now I understand. Thank you.
I got you, Nancy.
I was like, what is that
reference? Knew right where she was going.
It
with
was
that.
so slow.
Same wavelength.
Yes, exactly. So it's been great having you here. We appreciate all of the help you gave us in launching Deep Space Pride
and your friendship.
And
I would be remiss if I didn't plug our mutual friend Sarah, who helped spitball some ideas for names. And
thank you, Sarah.
Is a collaboration.
A collab
with her. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Thank you to Sarah. Thank you to Nancy. It's been great having you here with us for our big 25th, probably pretty close to our longest episode ever.
Yeah, it's been ongoing.
Yes.
So because that's what happens when you have like another person being chatty Cathy and going on and on as we usually are.
And Johnson's been really well behaved when we've had a second.
Oh my God,
another person.
45. Goodness, get out here.
Yeah. So
that about does it for our 25th episode. So hopefully this was enjoyable. It was hopefully enjoyable for our listeners to hear another voice kind of in our usual banter.
And don't we want to hear our listeners' voices?
Okay, you know what? That's exactly what I was trying to segue to. So I appreciate you interrupting me.
Wow.
So, Mike, do you want to tell our listeners how they can reach us?
Sure. They can email us at deepspacepride@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on Instagram or Twitter at deepspacepride. We'd love to hear from you. And also, we would love it if after 25 episodes, if you've been along for part of this journey or you're just new, maybe you know someone you could share this podcast with and help us grow our audience. So if you would kindly subscribe, share, and review our podcast. That would be awesome to help us out.
I just subscribed.
Okay, well.
Wow. After
I'm a
25
subscriber.
episodes.
I would rate this 5 stars. Highly recommend.
Highly recommend.
Well,
just
thank
like
you.
Lola Sultana's cleavage.
That's great.
Sultana's cleavage.
Yes.
Cool.
So, well, thanks everybody. This has been a lot of fun. And Nancy, thanks again. This has been a great episode. And
Yes.
we will have to do this again in the future.
Yeah, and we will be, for our listeners that are going to be listening to us, we are going to be continuing our Women of Trek series for the remainder of March. So I believe our next episode will be covering some of our favorite characters from Deep Space Nine, which I'm very excited to talk about. So stay tuned.
We love Deep Space Nine on Deep Space Pride.
Yes. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks, listeners.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks again, Nancy. And we'll see you all next week.
I had a blast.
Bye.
Bye.
Deep Space Pride is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Coconut